Hello, welcome to the class. Thank you for watching our online class today. And we are broadcasting again from our headquarters in Kagawa, Japan. And so my name is Akira. I'm going to be talking, doing the lecture part. And her name is Megumi. So she has a lot of customers in North America and Europe and other parts of the world. And so she's been helping our customers for the past few years. And so he's going to be making the noodles on our noodle machine later. So we are excited to talk about vegan ramen, and we've been getting a lot of requests for this subject like for a long time. But we're happy to do this today. And then because vegan ramen is something that's been like developed like for the past few years, and then we are hoping to be able to like do it in the years to come. Like again, like another class maybe. So this is going to be the first one what we're doing today. And so let's get into the lecture part first, and we'll do the practical part later. Okay, so vegan ramen, but before we talk about vegan ramen, let me just talk a little bit about ourselves, because there are some of you like who don't know much about us. So let me introduce ourselves. So like we've been in this business for like noodles for 45 years, and we've been manufacturing noodle machines that are designed to do for small production like restaurants. And we've been running like noodle schools for on like ramen, udon, and soba for 20 years. And what we do is like what we teach, production of noodles, soups, toppings, and everything basically like from scratch. And people who want to like start up their own restaurants, noodle businesses, have been like joining us. So we have a school here in Kagawa at headquarters, and we have a one in Tokyo, and we have another one in Singapore. We have customers that use our machines in 61 countries, and we have different locations, offices. We have 8 locations in Japan, like Tokyo, Osaka. We have a location in Korea, Singapore, Netherlands, USA. So we are basically a group of noodle making experts, like who are dedicated to success of our customers by providing a lot of expertise in equipment, even basically ingredients, by developing their noodle products, their businesses. So if you are interested in doing some business with us, like please feel free to let us know, contact us. Okay, let's start talking about vegan ramen. And so like today's we're talking about vegan ramen and what it is and like what's important for good vegan ramen. And we believe like to make good like vegan ramen, like we believe that ingredients are the key. So we talk about ingredients for vegan ramen, and we talk about like noodles for vegan ramen. Then again, like ingredients and the production processes. And Megumi is going to make ramens that are suitable for vegan ramen in a ramen machine that we have here. And we are going to move to our kitchen where we teach the cooking part of the ramen school. And we're going to have our instructor who's going to do the like technical aspects of vegan ramen again. Like it's just a bit of a lecture, and he's going to show 2 examples of vegan ramen and followed by a FAQ session. And so if you have any questions, during the lecture, the noodle making part, just feel free to send us questions in the comments. Okay, so let's start talking about vegan ramen. And so we've seen like a lot of people, like more and more people like go vegan, and I think there are several reasons people go vegan, and some of them like do it for their health benefits because of the ingredients allowed for use. Some do it for the beliefs and values in like animal welfare, and then others like follow their vegan diets due to like concerns over the environment. Like because we rely on like animal-based foods like for a long time, and that's been damaging the environment, right? I mean, to the point where we kind of been feeling the effects, right? For over the past, like especially for the past few years, like in form of like it's like global warming. Like every summer seems like hotter and hotter, right? So that to keep down or reduce like CO2 level, like we should go vegan and or consume foods that are locally grown. Because there are so many who are concerned about like the environment, they go vegan, and so we should try to use as many locally grown ingredients as we can, and like explain it to the customers who, they may become like passionate about like what you offer, and then they become like fans of your restaurant. And so vegan and ramen, sorry, so like because there are certain rules, right? What's allowed to eat or not. You need to understand and decide on like which ingredients to use to create a bowl vegan ramen. According to some sources, what you can eat as a vegan are follows, and what I the basically like all ingredients need to be foods made only from plants. So fruits and vegetables, legumes such as like peas, beans, nuts and seeds like bread, rice, pasta, like dairy alternatives like as soy milk, coconut milk, almond milk, and vegetable oils. Um, because what you can use to make your ramen is limited, so you have to be creative and flexible to think and come up with recipes that make your ramen a bowl ramen. That's good for a vegan person to enjoy. A vegan ramen tends to be light in taste and flavors, but with a certain combination of ingredients and how they're cooked, we can create a ramen that's dense and packed with umami, which should satisfy even like ramen fans who are not vegan. So the ingredients you use to make your vegan ramen are critical, and it will be whether or not you can use what's readily available locally in your area to create a great bowl of vegan ramen. So let's look at the components of ramen and what ingredients may be used to create each component. So first, bowl ramen consists of three components, like noodles, soup, and toppings. A good bowl of ramen like has a good balance in taste and flavors that these components make up. The soup is made of three parts: base stock, base sauce, and the flavored oil. Usually these three are put together in a bowl when serving it to a customer. And as some vegan may be concerned about their health, like they may appreciate the explanation of how much each nutrient, like carbohydrate, like protein, fat, and fiber, each bowl contains. And of course, like if you can indicate like other nutrients or like health benefits in more details, that would be better. So let's talk about each, or like what kind of ingredients that you may be able to use for each component. So for the base stock, various types of vegetables like fruits, types of legumes like, such as chickpeas, like seaweed, kombu, etc. Like mushrooms, like they're usually dried, dried shiitake mushrooms, various types of milk from non-animal source foods, like soy milk, like the coconut milk, the fermented rice ring, etc. Um, base sauce. So this sauce, the soy sauce, salt, miso, like we talked about these like in previous classes. So to make base sauce, like we infuse like different types of ingredients in these basic the sauces. Like so soy sauce, like we cook these ingredients, soy sauce, to infuse these ingredients flavor to the soy sauce. So we need to like kind of think about what ingredients we use to infuse the flavors with. So certain types of vegetable like mushroom, kelps are usually used, and then oils, flavored oils, basically the same sort of like type, like so as in this sauce. So we use oils that are made of like vegetables like coconut, like sesame and sunflower oil. And again, like we cook different types of ingredients in these oils to infuse the flavors. And for example, like garlic, leek, chili, and like sesame, like vegetables, nuts and seeds, different types. And then topping various types of vegetables, bringing products like they sometimes use like fried bean curd, like that's kind of traditional like kind of tofu product that we use. Uh, Bean paste, nuts, seeds, various types of like mushrooms, oil chopped in paste forms. And there are many meat substituting ingredients as well, like there's impossible meat and other things uh, like tofu kind of made products too. And for the noodles, of course, like wheat flour, various types of grains, vegetables like seaweeds, like tea, spices, nuts, seeds, or any ingredients that are non-ASF, like animal source food, and and they are good for health. So vegan ramen, like using only non-animal source food ingredients, may be difficult to bring us strong flavors. How do you pack your ramen with umami? We think that the key may be use of fermented foods. There are many types of fermented foods that are not animal source food. And for example, miso, rice malt, and other types of grain malt fermented with salt, soy sauce, etc. Natto is a traditional Japanese soy product fermented. So that's basically fermented soybeans. Tempeh is a traditional Indonesian soy product that's less strong flavor than natto. It's made, but also made from like fermented soybeans. And I want to talk a bit about like some of the examples of vegan ramen that some famous famous ramen shops in Japan made. But like all these pictures are like I took from some of the ramen dishes that like they're made in our ramen school. So like these images are not like relevant to like the dishes like I'm going to talk about. The first one is Afuri. This is bowl of vegan ramen, ramen shop. Like Afuri is famous for like the yuzu ramen, and it's in Tokyo. It's from Tokyo. I mean, they did this dish like a few years back. The stock is pure made of like vegetables such as onions, carrots, and celeries. To bring a dense umami flavor from the ingredients, great amount of vegetables are cooked slowly for long hours. And then the salinity level is high to match with the sweetness from root vegetables like carrots. There's another one that's called like Menya Musashi. This is a kind of famous chain of ramen shops that's from Tokyo. And then there are regional shop like in Shinjuku, Tokyo. They did this bowl. And those of you who are like used to like eating regular bowls of ramen may be like disappointed when trying a bowl of vegan ramen for the first time, right? Because the taste is too light and unsatisfactory. But they are famous for like pork kakuni, that's like braised pork meat, and they replaced it by braised sendai who is like kind of chunk of like this thing that's like really sticky, that's made of like a wheat bran. And then they use a different types of miso, rice miso like barley miso, sendai miso, hacho miso, and the other types of miso like for the broth soup. And then as toppings, it has like braised enoki mushrooms, soy meat, and scallions. And for the flavored oil, they use sansho or like Japanese peppers. This is like family of like citron pepper used, and they put like piece of yuzu skin that gives a kind of distinctive flavor in the soup. And there's another like famous chain ramen shop that called like Suranoiro, and it's also like from Tokyo in Tokyo, and they're pretty famous for like their like vegetarian dishes, and they did this like vegan veggie soba. Like it features like base stock that's made up from carrots and soy milk, many with many cooked and uncooked vegetables as toppings. They put like mashed potatoes and like yuzu kosho. That's basically a spicy condiment made of like yuzu skin, green chili pepper, salt, and yuzu zest. This sort of kind of um, toppings that allows customers to change the taste like after they go through like halfway through the bowl. The noodles are flat with red bell pepper like powder needed in them. So it's kind of orange kind of color like noodles. So though you can bring strong flavors in bowls of vegan ramen, because there's no animal source food ingredients used. It's usually not heavy in stomach. And some other dishes use like coconut oil and coconut milk as the base stock along with vegetable stocks. And then others feature curry, spices, and tantame, like that's dense, like sesame paste. And it's stocks made mainly from tomatoes, kombu, and shiitake mushrooms, and others. It use a miso for base sauce and the other fermented foods as like soup base and toppings. I mean, like very common practice, but you may be like find local known animal source food ingredients that are very good for your vegan soup and toppings. So there are some patterns of like ingredient use for vegan, but we should find local ingredients that are great for vegan ramen. And the noodles, like to make noodles for boiled vegan ramen, we should aim for making them healthier. There's certain ingredients that may be popular among the vegan and locally grown. So let's start talking about the noodles. So I've been using this chart like for in the previous classes to describe different types of noodles in terms of noodle texture. And let me just briefly like explain this, what this chart does means. And so the horizontal line is basically like hydration rate, like how much water is contained, the percentage. So the higher the percentage, the softer noodle. And vertical line, that's the protein of the flour that's used to make these noodles. Basically, the higher the protein, the harder the noodle texture. On the right hand side, there's numbers lined up vertically, and from the top, that's like 1.0 millimeter to like the bottom, like 1.5.0. So that's the width of the noodles, like size of the noodles. So the thinner from the top to the thicker. And if you see for example, like Hakata ramen, that's in the left top corner in the green circle, that's high in protein content, like low in hydration ratio, moisture content. So this is a hard noodle. But like for the size, corresponding to like 1.1, 1.3 millimeters, so this is thin and hard noodle. Well, if you see the opposite corner, like that's called like tsukemen noodles, that's high in hydration ratio, but low in protein content flour. So this is soft noodle, but like let's see for the noodle size, it's 5.1, like 2.5, 3.0. So this is thick noodle. So it is thick and soft noodle. And because you have like thick noodle and a thick and hard noodle, but that's not a good combination for noodle texture. That's just hard to eat. So any kind of noodles like should fall like somewhere in between hard and thin or thick and soft. And then I've checked like all these vegan ramen, and then there are many variations. And of course, like there may be like some exceptions, that don't fall within like this circle, the vegan ramen. But there are many variations depending on like what type of the soup that they're serving with. And please remember the chart because like as we talk about like other uh, aspects of the noodles, this we come back to this chart. So let's start talking about ingredients. The ingredients for the ingredients for ramen noodles, basically you need to remember these three: flour, water, and the kanshi. So let's start talking about them in more details. So the flour, well, we already talked about. So the protein of the flour, the more harder, the less softer. And remember the chart, right? Like Hakata ramen noodles, that's like higher in protein, so that makes it harder. So we want to make it thinner, the size-wise, thin and hard noodle. So less protein, softer, so thicker. And then ash content, that's basically like how much minerals it contains in the flour. Then the higher the ash, the darker the color, and the stronger the flavor of the wheat. Basically, the higher the ash, like more minerals. I guess like for the noodles for vegan ramen, like I think higher, we could say like higher the ash, that the healthier. So I guess like for the noodles for vegan ramen, like we could use flour with higher ash. The viscosity value, that's basically like how elastic the noodles become. And elastic, that's we could say that like it's more flexible. So if you have a flour with a high protein or like low viscosity, then you end up like making noodles that are like just hard but like easy to break. So basically, like, higher the viscosity, the better the texture. And so like if you're trying to find a good flour for noodles, then you should be concerned by these three: protein, ash, viscosity. The water or like hydration ratio that we talked about. So like basically higher the hydration ratio, like more water, the softer the noodle, less harder. And then when it comes to like mixing, so making dough by mixing solid ingredients and liquid ingredients, the time matters, and the less hydration ratio, the longer we have to mix. The more water, the shorter the mixing time. And this image shows like different um, dough conditions in varying hydration ratio. And another thing I want to talk about like water is that like water is very important like when it comes to like cooking of noodles and cooking of stocks too. Uh, then the kind of water we want to use is soft water because when we cook noodles, for example, there's like some ingredients that need to be released to the cooking water, and in exchange it gets water from cooking water to, and then that's how the noodle gets cooked. But like if you're cooking noodles in hard water, that contains a lot of like minerals like magnesium, calcium. So there's less room for these new ingredients to be released to. So that's why it takes time. And when we take like when we cook the noodles like for a long time, the surface of the noodle melts, the cooking water, and then that affects the noodle texture badly. And of course, like the noodle dissolved in the cooking water, so we are losing noodles, some of the noodles in the cooking water in the process. So the yield of the cooked noodles is bad in the hard water. Same thing we can say about like cooking the broth, the cooking the stocks. So and then like we had to cook the noodles like stocks for a longer time, then which means that we had to spend more money to spend more time in the labor and the gas and everything. So there's nothing good about using hard water. So when you have to work with the hard water, then you should use installing of like we should think about like installing of softener, which doesn't cost you much. So that's water. And the kansi. So kansi is something that you have to have in your ramen noodles. I mean noodles to be called ramen. And there are many variations of kansi that are used. But like if you are making noodles that are like expected to be consumed within 1 week to 2 weeks, uh, this is basically a combination of potassium carbonate and sodium carbonate. So potassium carbonate hardens the noodle texture, it changes the color, the noodle, the yellow, has a strong kansi smell, which is not like may not be pleasant to some people. And in sodium carbonate does exactly the opposite. So we blend them at the different ratios for different sizes of noodles. And thin noodle, we increase the amount of potassium carbonate to make it harder because thin, hard, right? Then for thicker noodle, like we increase the amount of sodium carbonate to make it softer, thicker, softer, right? And so kansi is something that you have to have for ramen noodles. And use a lot of other ingredients. And I think especially for vegan ramen noodles, when it comes to vegan ramen noodles, we probably use a lot of like coloring, like flavoring ingredients, like different types of vegetables, spinach, like, and then like seaweed, like kind of kombu, like powder or something, or yeah, and then like grain, different types of grain, like of course, like we use whole wheat, like rye, like I've seen like our customers are using like a locally grown ingredients that are like that they can find, like they can find like only in that area. So I think like just to make them healthier than just using the regular like wheat flour. I think we should think about like use of like a lot of ingredients, different types of ingredients for vegan ramen. To start talking about the production processes of noodles, and then like we've shown like this slide a lot, and this slide basically describes the building, I mean building of like dough, noodle dough, and then the most important process in this slide is weighing of ingredients at the right ratio. And we weigh everything, and instead of like measuring things and by volume, because like weight is more precise, like more accurate than the volume. Like sometimes, like especially when it comes like a measurement of liquid, that right ratio to percentages, and so we can. That's why we can like make the same quality of noodles like over and over with. We can be consistent in quality. So this is the most important process. And mixing, so blending liquid ingredients and solid ingredients, and then what's happening in there is that like so each flour grain gradually come together like to make form crumbles of dough, like as in mixed with the liquid. And so like crumbles like gets bigger and bigger, and we call this process like agitation granulation process. I mean phenomena. Like so that's what we want to see happen in the mixing process. And then what we are doing basically is that like we'll be building like gluten structure inside dough in this process. And then as you can see like on the right bottom corner, like this is the image of like gluten structure dough like being developed in like kind of web-like form. And the resting process that helps kind of develop this gluten structure inside the dough. And what we do is that like we just put the dough in a plastic bag out of mixer and then let it sit at room temperature. It's like 25 degrees Celsius around, and so for an hour or so, and so that helps kind of develop a good instructions in dough. Wrap forming, combining resting, second resting process we do on this slide, but like I'm going to talk about them like later, like when we actually make noodles on noodle machine. So after we make dough and everything's ready, so the gluten structure is being developed. So all we have to do is just thin it to the final thickness, and we cut it, portion it, and we rest it. So put the noodles in the refrigerator, and the noodles dry, lose moisture, and the color gets translucent, and then the noodle texture gets tighter. So that's basically the third resting that we do. And of course, cooking. When it comes to cooking, right? We there are many. I've come across like many people like who are not familiar with cooking noodles, like effective way of like cooking noodles, and then of course you have to have like a lot of water, a lot of water. That's like at least like 10 times the amount of like the weight of the noodles that you're cooking. So if you're cooking like 1 kilograms noodle, like you should at least prepare like 10 kilograms of water. Water that's rolling boiling. It has to be rolling boiling before you put noodles in there. And then the noodles need to be like gelatinized. Gelatinization, that starch of noodles take up liquid and swell upon like heating and become clear gel-like texture, like this one, this noodle shown in the picture. And as far as like they're gelatinized, they're cooked. So for those of you like who are thinking about like doing the takeout, the you know, after the noodles are gelatinized, then you could stop cooking. They take them out and they chill them, and then so the noodles like stop cooking, so that otherwise like this noodles would just keep cooking, and then they would just get soft and like lose texture. So that's one thing you should think about. And so this is like how noodles get cooked and soggy, and so fresh noodle boiled, and then there's some core of the noodles still retaining the kind of raw part of it. Some people like call it al dente, right? And then so the water gets like penetrates in like to the core, and then it loses core, and then it gets soggy. And so by changing the cooking time, like estimating how long noodles should stay in the broth, like soup, hot or cold, and then think about noodle size, ingredients, etc. You should adjust them. Like to when you think about how the texture you want that to be, how the texture of the noodles to be, when customers actually try them, like experience them. Before we start like making noodles, I want to talk a bit about benefits of like homemade noodles. Okay, and first one like is that like if you're a restaurant serving noodles, like you have two options, right? Buying noodles, making noodles. If you buy noodles, typically the price of like one serving noodles is 50 cents in US dollars. And of course, like if the portion size is bigger, or like you put some other ingredients in there, like maybe higher, but well, typically 50 cents. And making noodles, the cost of making noodles, like one serving, like 20 cents in US dollars, including labor, ingredients, and utility fees. So you're looking at like 50 to 60% serving, right? And if per serving, so and if you sell like let's say like 200 servings on average a day, then like think about like in a month, if you operate like 25 days a month, and then if you think about like how much you be saving like in a year or so, and so that's a lot. And other benefits we could think about is like better noodles at low cost than if you buy them like from noodle factory yourself, and you have total control of the quality and what you can produce, right? So you know what you are putting in your noodles, and then you can control the quality, of course, as well as like cost as too, right? And then with that benefit, you can provide more values to the customers. And because of the low cost of like producing one serving noodles, yeah, you could probably just give like additional portion of noodles like for free of charge like to the customer, like, and then customers like really appreciate that, and then they would just keep coming back to you. And you can make like unique products, of course, that by using like different types of ingredients or like different processes, different methods, and that would you maybe like produce noodles that are like no one else in the world like produce. And you can show your customers how you make noodles from scratch, right? I think this is very important too, and because when customers see like how you make noodles from scratch in the machine, then that tells like that like gives like your customers like peace of mind, and because like you're using safe ingredients and everything, and so that's very good benefit that homemade noodles bring. And it's a typical sort of like setup that like we may have like for like production of up to maybe 100 servings in an hour from scratch. It's like we only need like small space for it, so that's another benefit, and it's easy to start. And there's another thing I want to show you about kind of homemade noodles, like um, so we have a sister company that manufactures noodles, and they've been selling like a lot of noodles like to consumers as well like restaurants. And so of course they have a factory and stuff, but like they have like kind of sort of like small production to be to be flexibly producing manufacturing these types of noodles. So they started doing this ramen for home kind of kit, like, and then so they've been selling like these three noodles, types of noodles, like for Tokyo style, like Hakata style, and then the kind of tsukemen style, right? And then they're selling like as a set for three with the concentrated soup. So they're selling it for like kind of $6, like $5, $6, and then it's been very very popular. And so they just started like all of a sudden, right? And then they just plan it and started like within like very short period of time, and then so they give this like recipes as well, kind of in details. So you know anyone who never cooked like ramen before can do it. So this is just an idea, right? It's the idea that you should have to start something new and then something that you can, make it profitable business. So yeah, that's something like you should think about, and we can definitely help you like sort it. So if you are interested, please feel free to like contact us. So let's start making noodles, right? So this is the noodles that we're gonna make for both vegan ramen. So and then for this noodle, like we are doing it for tsukemen, and so this is a flour. This is a wheat flour, and this is the whole wheat powder. So these two are the solid ingredients, and his water and kansi salt, and this is walnut paste. These four are going to be liquid ingredients. So we consider like kind of have like whole ingredient list, but like we kind of separate solid ingredients and the liquid ingredients to have like this formula of uh, recipes. Okay, so let's start making noodles. So the solid ingredients, the whole wheat powder with the wheat flour. So we first like put it into this mixer. So this is a 10 kilograms mixer, and the minimum batch is 4 kilograms of solid ingredients with liquid ingredients on top of it. And then so this is a 10 kilograms mixer, so like you can mix up to 10 kilograms of solid ingredients. On top of it, you're adding liquids. So the maximum amount of liquid you can get up to is around like 4 kilograms. So in total, you're getting about like 14 kilograms of dough at a time. So out of 14 kilograms dough, you may be able to like get about like up to like 100 servings. And by the way, this machine is like called Richman One machine. Okay, so for the liquid ingredients, we need to dissolve everything in water. So we are dissolving the salt, kansi powder, right? We need to dissolve like thoroughly, like completely. Make sure that, and then one thing that's different is this time around is walnut paste. And walnut paste is a bit dense, so you just add a little bit of like water to kind of dilute it, and then so like make it more liquid before we add it to the dough and then flour. So first we add the liquid onto the lid, which has like small holes in them. Like so, from these small holes, that liquid can drip through to the flour little by little, so that we don't have to add like all the liquid all at once. This basically allows for like a good hydration of flour. The color bit looks like coffee, but like milk coffee, but that's from the walnut. And so it's mixing, but like we can't wait for the mixer to be done. Like just we're too impatient for that. So she prepared the dough beforehand, and see like how she put the dough in the plastic bag and sealed it. So that's for the resting. That's for the first resting. And in total, this is a 42% hydration ratio. dough, so that you see the crumbles is like kind of bigger. And so what we're doing right now is like we are feeding this dough into the set of rollers that with that like roller gap, like that's set to certain clearance. And for this type of dough that's this big, this side of crumbles, we are going to set the initial roll gap to like 2 millimeter. Yeah, we're sorry, but like, we're sorry, but like, we can't let you guys smell the dough because the walnut paste that we used is that there's strong flavor of like walnut coming out of dough, and so there's a dough sheet coming out of the other side of the machine, and like we widen it, we sorry we widen it like on the rolling pin, and then like this allows us to like kind of like automatically um, wind it. But you may be able to see that like dough is like still pretty rough, like fragile, and so we still need to like kind of develop the gluten structure by through rollers, and and this is like going like really slow first because we want to apply very good pressure onto the dough by going slow. So for the mixer, so we added like just about 1/3, I mean 2/3 of the liquid first, and then we add the rest of the liquid, and then mix it for 1 more minute. So that for this level like hydration, we just mix it for 5 minutes in total. So the first process we call it rough foaming because like the dough sheet that's coming out is pretty rough and fragile. But we have to like make it firm, make it stronger. And to do that, we are separating it to two separate sheets, and then we are compounding them into again like one sheet of dough through rollers, this set of rollers, and so that was 2 millimeter. That was 2 millimeter molar gap that is going through, and then so it's supposed to be like each sheet is 2 millimeter in thickness, and then we are combining like two separate sheets, right? So that's supposed to be like 2 millimeter plus 2 millimeter, so that's 4 millimeter equivalent of like dough is like going through a roller, right? So and but like we always like apply this rule of 70% because we don't want to thin it, we don't want to thin it drastically because that would damage the like gluten structure inside dough. So we apply this rule of 70%. So that's 2 millimeter plus 2 millimeter, like 4 millimeter, 4 times 70%, 0.7, like 2.8 millimeter. But we want to make it simple, so like we round it up to 3 millimeter. So now it's that those sheets are going through roller gap of like 3 millimeter. Okay, so that was first what we call like combining process. So the dough that came out like has like kind of smoother kind of surface, and it's a lot firmer than before. But we want to make sure that it's firm enough by doing another round of this combining process. So that was 3 millimeter, right? So 3 millimeter, like again, like we are separating into two sheets, and so each sheet is 3 millimeter in thickness. So again, like 3 plus 3, 6. So 6 millimeter equivalent dough is going through, and so 6 times 0.7 is 4.2. But we want to make it simple by rounding it down to 4 millimeter. Set the roll gap to 4. And so after that, like we are not gonna do any more of this like combining process. So after this, the dough, the gluten structure has been developed like well enough. So we're not gonna stick them together, right? So from this point on, we want to dust on the dough to prevent it from sticking. Especially this is a high, we call it like high hydration ratio dough noodles. We need to dust a lot to keep it from sticking. So we have this automatic duster that helps us dust it on it, and you can adjust the like volume of dusting easily. So after second combining, like all you have to do is just thin it to the final thickness. So that was 4 millimeter roller gap, like it going through, right? And then so from this point on, that's 4 times 0.7, like 2.8. Like to make it simple, like we run it up to 3 millimeter. So now it's going through 3 millimeter roller gap. And from this point on, we can go faster. And what she did was like just speed up the roller speed. So that was 3 millimeter roller gap. And next round, we're gonna thin it again, but we wanna measure the thickness of the dough first. So it's going to 3 millimeter, but like the actual thickness is actually 4.6-ish. So like there's a difference of like 1.6 millimeter. So the actual thickness dough is like always bigger than the roller gap we set because it's dough, it bounces back after it's gone through the roller gap. So to get to the final thickness with precision, we need to know what the difference is between the roller gap and actual thickness of dough. And this is going to be the tsukemen noodles, and tsukemen noodles are typically thick, and so being thick in size means that like the noodle texture should be soft, and so that's why the hydration ratio is 42%. It's like, and so that's now it's going through 2 millimeter roller gap. So going through 2 millimeter, and let's measure the actual thickness again. And so that's now about three. So there's a difference of like 1 millimeter between roller gap and actual thickness. And the final thickness that we are aiming at is around like a 2.2 millimeter in thickness. So we set the roller gap to 1.2 millimeter, and we expect the dough to bounce back by 1 millimeter. So 1.2 plus 1 millimeter difference, we should get the final thickness of 2.2 millimeter. And kata we are using for this tsukemen noodle is it's called like number 12 square number 12, and this means that like each group is 2.5 millimeter in width. So each round of noodles is going to be like 2.5 millimeter in width, and the thickness is controlled by the roller gap, right? So the size would be the thickness 2.2 and width 2.5, a bit like rectangular shape. So we set a cutter and set a conveyor, and we want to mount the duster over the conveyor because we want to dust the noodles that are actually coming out as well. And so we are cutting it, and you can adjust the length of the noodle by the volume. And basically, why you can adjust the length is that like basically the length of noodle means the serving size of the noodles. So the longer the length, the bigger the serving size. And typically like tsukemen noodles, because tsukemen noodles like comes with like kind of less soup, small amount of soup like than regular like noodle soup. So the ramen shops like usually compensate uh, for that small amount of soup with bigger portion of noodles. For tsukemen noodles, the portion size is usually bigger. Typically, like in weight of like fresh noodles before cooking, typically like we're talking about like 150 grams to like for some like pretty ramen shops like they probably do like 200, so like regular size. And as I talked about it, the benefits of like homemade noodles. So for shops like that are making their own noodles, they happily like give the customer like free additional portion noodles, or like they let the customers choose the different sizes for the same price, because the cost of like making noodles for them is like very very small. Okay, so that's how we did the noodles for vegan ramen, and like walnut paste needed in them. So again, like the the smell of walnut is, we're sorry that you guys can't, we can't let you guys smell it, but so we've been doing this class for some time, and then, like, we usually do the real class, like, by actually to going to like different places. We have like places in Holland, Netherlands, near Amsterdam. We have one a place in New York, Singapore, Seoul, Korea, and then other places. We did this kind of class in other places. Like we typically do like half a day, like one whole day, and of course, like we make different types of noodles, dishes. So we can't like let you guys try them, but like doing this kind of class, it's very difficult for us to provide it for you guys. So, but because we have these locations, Singapore, New York, Amsterdam, Seoul, Korea, if you live nearby, or like if you're interested in like trying out like our noodles, what we made this class, or like um, you know just seeing the demo like in person, just feel free to contact us, and like we'll be more than happy to like kind of arrange it for you guys, and we'll try our best to make them available for you guys. So please let us know. Okay, let's go to the kitchen, and our instructors are waiting for us, and they're going to show us some examples of vegan ramen. So, so this is our kitchen, and when we have class, we have up to like 8 students at a time, and because we believe in like kind of one-on-one session, uh, we want to make sure that each student goes goes home with a like complete set of like recipes that they want to make, right? So we do that, and then so that's why we limit the number of students up to 8. And what we do here, like we have like big induction cookers, 10 of them. So each of them like maybe like cooking like different ingredients. One of them maybe like cooking like pork backbone. One of them maybe like cooking like whole chicken, or lighter version, heavier version. Uh, then so each student can taste how each ingredient tastes, right? Stocks, and then we are making like tens of different types of motodare, the base sauce that we talked about, flavor oil, we talked about from scratch, and the noodles. So we combine them all like last and to reach the original recipes of like that ramen that each student wants to make. So this is basically like a lab where they can play around with like different ingredients, and then so that's what we provide. And of course, like we teach everything, like how to make everything from scratch, but like basically one has to have like clear direction of like what kind of ramen they want to make, so that we can help them reach that goal within a short period of time, like which is like about a week, about 1 week. um, so if you are interested, please feel free to contact us for more details. And we have our instructors over here, and um, first of all, like Mr. Cadet, like so he's our chief instructor, and then like he's been with us like for the past few years. He has a background in like Chinese cuisine, and then as some of you saw, like he did the last class, and then so he's chief instructor, so like he knows everything. So if you have some questions, please feel free to like send us in the comments, and then feel free to ask any questions. Um, we have, thank you, Mr. Ikeda. We have the son, Mr. Sun, and then he's been with us like for should be like past like several months, but like he's been like working hard, and like the this one like he actually is a native speaker of Chinese and like so for those of you like who are you know well, more comfortable like speaking Chinese, feel free to like send us any questions in Chinese. Thank you, Mr. San. And so we have Thomas, like Mr. Takeuchi. He's maybe speak English, like coming from Vancouver, BC, Canada. So he's been with us like for the past few years, working as an instructor, and then so he has a background in Japanese cuisine, and then working in a sushi restaurant and others, and so he has a lot of knowledge, like experience in that field too. So, and then we're happy to have him like doing this class this time around, like showing us some few examples of this vegan ramen. So thank you, Thomas.
Okay, thank you, Akira. Once again, my name is Thomas. I'm one of the instructors at the Yamato Ramen School. And today I'll be talking about vegan ramen. So I'm going to talk about the vegan ramen using the board. First of all, nowadays, vegan ramen option is an essential part of a ramen shop. So today I will be showing you two different types of vegan ramen. First one's going to be vegan tantan ramen and vegan tomato skimen. And I want to talk about how to improve your vegan ramen. So I have 5 points for you. And first point is vegan dashi. So dashi means stock in Japanese, and Japanese stock often use dried ingredients to make the stock. And some of the examples are kelp dashi, and kelp dashi is made from dried kelp. And also shiitake dashi is made from dry shiitake, and obviously dried tomato dashi. So by using these dashi as a part of your vegan ramen soup, it's going to add in increased amount of umami into the bowl of ramen, and it's going to make it more flavorful. And number two, fermented seasoning. And some of the examples are soy sauce and miso paste. And so how these soy sauce and miso paste is made is by fermenting the soybeans. And by fermenting the soybeans, it's going to break down the amino acids and increase the amount of umami. So by using the soy sauce and miso paste into the flavoring sauce as a part of your element of your ramen, it's going to add in more flavor and umami. And number three, oil. So vegan ramen tends to lack an amount of oil. So by using oil like sesame oil or olive oil, it's gonna add in like a little bit of a richness to the bowl of ramen. So yeah, add in some sort of oil into your ramen. And number four, spices. So like I said, vegan ramen tends to be a little bit too bland or lack in flavor. So by adding in some spices, it's gonna add in some kick to the bowl ramen. So it's gonna make it more flavorful. And lastly, beans, nuts, and seeds. So these will add in it's kind of like adding in the oil. Beans, nuts, and seeds has a high content of oil. So it's gonna give that richness to the bowl ramen. Like for example, by using the milk alternatives made by these beans, nuts, and seeds, it's gonna make the ramen a little bit more creamy and rich. And also, they have a lot of protein in it as well, so it's gonna balance out the nutritional value of your vegan ramen as well. Okay, so please, when you're making your vegan ramen, consider these 5 points. I'm sure it's gonna make your vegan ramen a lot better by focusing on these 5 points. Okay, so let's actually talk about the ramen we're going to be making today. So first, I want to talk about the vegan tantan ramen. And for the soup base for the tantan ramen, we're going to be using pumpkin, onion, garlic puree. And we're going to mix in some kelp dashi for the umami and soy milk for the creaminess. And the pumpkin puree right here, Okay. And for the flavoring sauce, we're going to be using vegan miso moto dare. And for the vegan miso moto dare, it's not just miso. There's all sorts of ingredients into this moto dare. And this recipe is taught at a ramen school. So if you're interested, please consider a ramen school. Or for people that can't come to a ramen school, we have a textbook. This textbook is used at our ramen school, and this talks about how to make the stock, moto dare, and flavored oil. And also, this other book talks about everything about noodle making. So please consider these. If you're interested, please contact us through our website, and we're going to reply back to you. Okay, so we're going to move on. For the flavored oil, we're going to be using chili oil. It's going to give that nice kick to the ramen, and also sesame oil for the nice aroma. And for the noodles, we're going to be using medium hydration, medium thickness noodles. And we're going to change it up a little and by using black sesame noodles. We mixed in some black sesame into the dough so the noodle itself has some flavor and aroma. Okay. And for the toppings, for tantan men, often have some ground pork as a topping, but obviously we can't use that for vegan ramen. So I chopped up some shiitake mushrooms and flavored it with soy sauce to make a vegan tantan ground minced topping. And we're going to be using leek as well, green onion, and some spices. So this special spices, it's a mixture of Szechuan pepper and black pepper and chili pepper, same amount of each. And this is a great mixture of spices. It's going to give a nice kick to the ramen, and it's great for miso ramen, spicy miso, tantan men, skemen. It goes well with anything. Okay, so we're going to be using this later on. Okay, and next, vegan tomato skemen. And we're going to be using, for the soup base, we're going to be using tomato sauce. And this tomato sauce is pretty much a pasta tomato sauce. So we use tomatoes, onion, garlic, basil, and etc. And we're going to mix in kelp dashi for the umami, and once again, soy milk for the creaminess. And for the flavoring sauce and flavored oil, we're going to be using the same one for the tantan men. And for the noodles, for skimen, they often use high hydration thick noodles. And for the toppings, because it's tomato skimen, we're going to be using tomatoes, shiitake mushrooms as a chashu alternative, and green onion, deep fried burdock for a nice crunch, and lastly, shiso leaves instead of using basil. It's going to give, if you use basil, the ramen's just going to be Italian tasting, but if you use shiso leaves, it's going to give that nice Japanese flavor. Okay, so let's get going. I'll start off from making the tomato skimen. We're going to start off by boiling the noodles. So, and we're going to be using special skimen noodle today as well. This skimen noodle is walnut skimen noodles. Mixed in some walnut paste into the noodles. It gives a nice walnut flavor, and also that oil from the walnut gives a nice texture to the noodles. So it's very interesting. So let's start off from boiling these noodles. Skimming noodles, the boiling time is very long. We're going to boil these for 5 minutes. So make sure the boiling machine is rapidly boiling, and put the noodles into the basket. Mix for the first 5 or 10 seconds and boil for 5 minutes. Okay. Make sure the noodles moving around in the basket so it gives that nice consistent boil. Okay, so while the noodles are boiling, let's move on to the soup part. Okay, so today for the tsukemen, we're going to be using that tomato sauce, soy milk, and kelp dashi. And I purposely kept the ingredients separate because I wanted to show you what goes into the soup. So first, I'm going to put in 100 grams of this tomato sauce, and 50 grams of this soy milk. Makes a soup very creamy. And for the umami, kelp dashi, 50 grams. Okay. And here's the miso-based moto dare for vegan ramen. And this is a chili oil-based flavored oil. And for regular ramen, we usually pour in the flavoring sauce and the oil into the bowl, and later on pour in the heated up stock into the bowl. But since we're making a thicker sauce tsukemen, we're gonna put in the flavoring sauce directly into the saucepan. And oil as well, directly into the saucepan. Okay, we're going to heat up this dipping sauce. Make sure to use a whisk so that everything is completely mixed. Good. And now I want to talk about the toppings. So this is a deep fried burdock. This is going to give that nice crunch to the ramen. And sauteed shiitake mushroom and tomato slices, green onion, and shiso leaves, the alternative of basil. And I'm also going to use the mixed spices to give that nice kick to the ramen. Okay. And for tsukemen noodles, so you usually chill the noodles for tsukemen. So you usually make the boiling time 2 times or 1.5 times longer if you're going to chill the noodles. Because when you chill the noodles, um, the starch is going to harden. So you have to like soften, overboil the noodles and then wash and chill the noodles so it's perfect texture later on. So for these type of thickness noodles, for if you're going to serve these hot, you can, these are probably going to be boiled in like 3 or 4 minutes. But since we're serving this chilled, we're going to be boiling it 5 minutes or maybe 6 minutes. So after these are boiled, we're going to move the noodles into this strainer, and we're going to wash and remove the starch around the noodles and chill the noodles. Okay, 5 more seconds. Okay. So for the noodles, into the strainer, and I'm going to wash noodles. Make sure to wash the noodles at least twice. So the first time is to remove the starch, second time is to chill the noodles. So strain out the water. So second time. Now I want to take the noodles. I want to present the noodles nicely lined up. So I'm grabbing all the noodles. And take that nicely lined up noodles into the bowl. And let's start plating the toppings. Okay, so first I'm going to take the sauteed shiitake mushrooms. And next, tomato slices. And some onion, green onion in the back for that green. And some deep, deep fried burdock, gobo in Japanese, in the center for that crunchiness and for nice height as well. And you have all the colors, white, brown, red, green. So it's nice and colorful as well. So let's plate this. And also for the sauce, the dipping sauce goes into this bowl. And for the toppings, shiso leaves, deep fried burdock, and that special spice. Okay, so this is how to prepare your tomato skimin, vegan tomato skimin. Guess up. Okay, so next we're going to be making that vegan tantanmen. So first, I'm going to prepare the soup. Once again, I'm going to show you what goes into the soup. So first, 150 grams of pumpkin, onion, garlic puree. And soy milk, 50 grams. Oh, sorry, 100 grams. 100 grams of this soy milk for that creaminess. And kelp dashi for the umami. Okay. And 1 scoop of this miso motodare, miso-based motodare. And 1 scoop of that chili oil-based flavored oil. And we're going to heat up the soup. So I'm going to heat up the soup. And while the soup is heating up, we're going to boil the noodles. We're going to be using this black sesame noodles. The boiling time will be a minute and a half. Okay. And once you put the noodles into the basket, mix for the first 5 or 10 seconds. Okay, so while the noodles are boiling, let's get back to the soup. So the soup is nice and hot. So let's pour the soup into the bowl. And let's just wait for the noodles to be boiled. And for the toppings, we're going to use this chopped up shiitake mushroom sauteed with soy sauce. It's going to be like the alternative for that ground pork, minced ground pork. And some chopped up leek and thinly sliced green onion, and put some deep fried burdock as well. Okay, 15 more seconds. And once again, once the noodles are boiled, make sure to. Okay, sorry for that interruption. Okay, so the noodles are boiled. I'm going to put the noodles into the soup and just like line up the noodles. And for the toppings, we have the sauteed shiitake mushrooms in the middle. Just like stack it up in the middle. And green onion on top of the shiitake mushroom. And leek just like around the center. And a little bit of that deep fried burdock on the top. And lastly, I'm just gonna pour in a little bit of that chili oil for the nice red. I'm just going to wipe the bowl a little. So this is how to make your vegan tantan ramen made with pumpkin soup. Oh, sorry, I forgot about that. Mixed spices. So this is a key. So I'm just gonna season it with this spices. So now it's done. Vegan tantan min. So vegan ramen, please think about how to add in more umami because obviously with just vegetables, it's gonna lack in some umami compared to using chicken stock or pork stock. So add in some umami using dashi or using fermented seasoning. And add in some kick with that spices and add in some richness with the oil and the nuts and seeds and beans. Okay. So that's how to make these two vegetarian option ramen menus. So if there's any questions,
お店のレクチャーの時にやったやつだと思って、
Hmm.
だからね、こっちはそのリンクそのままレコードのやつ送られてきるリンクそのままもう一回押したら入れるよ。
Oh, so
同じリンク。
yeah, so we have a question if it's possible to watch this live afterwards, yes, it's going to be recorded, and you can use the same link to watch this video. Right? So please don't worry if you missed out. Oh, I missed out on the first part, or missed out on some parts of the ramen making part. You can rewatch the video again. So don't worry. Okay. If there's any other questions. Okay. So that's about it from my side. I'm going to pass it back to Akira.
So thank you, Thomas. So we have a question, like one question that asking like, what are the names of the ramen stores that I kind of mentioned as examples of like vegan ramen, and one of them is like Afuri Tokyo. So they're very famous for their yuzu ramen, and Afuri AFRI, Afuri. And second one is the Miyamusashi. Miyamusashi is like the like famous chain of like ramen shops that are in basically have multiple shops in Tokyo. Miyamusashi, and the last one I talked about is Sorano Iro. Sorano Iro. Sorano, and they're very famous for their veggie ramen, also in Tokyo. Okay. Well, the question, how do you replace egg white in ramen noodles? Replace egg white in ramen noodles. So egg white basically serves as like basically protein, and so like makes it harder, like kind of unique kind of hardness, and but like it also like works as sort of the like a kind of well, it sort of like helps like kind of keep the noodle texture, retain the noodle texture, and to replace it, yeah, for vegan, right? Yeah, so that's a good question, and like we might have to like get back to you like after this class. Yeah, because we are running out of time. We are running out of time. Thank you so much for taking your time, like watch the class, and then we hope to see you guys in the next class. So thank you so much. Bye bye.